Go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we'll welcome everybody to the August meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. We have Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Squashrito.
Here.
Bradshaw.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Hayes is going to be late. Lapp.
Here.
McDonald is excused. Oliver.
Here.
Shingles.
Here.
Daring is excused. You have four.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of tonight's agenda. You have the agenda in front of you. There's one new business item, and then there's one other/old business item. Are there any other items that anyone's aware of that needs to be on tonight's agenda, or any issues with the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olver, second by Lapp, to approve the agenda as prepared. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried, so the agenda is approved. Next item is the minutes. We last met on July 15th, so you have the July 15th minutes. Are there any corrections to the July 15th minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, so there was a motion by Olver, second by Bradshaw to approve the minutes. I'll just note, I heard the discussion before we started recording. Brown is spelled correctly in the roll call with the E, but not in the roll call vote on the second page. So if you want to add the E there, that would be, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. So, all right. Anything else? So just a minor correction on that. All in favor of approving the minutes with the one minor spelling change, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so minutes are approved. Next item is correspondence, board reports, and presentations. Commissioner Thering is not here, so I won't turn to him. Is there anything urgent from Board of Trustees that we should know about?
This is budget season, so the board just recently adopted amendment to the 2025 budget to make the adjustments where needed. We'll be getting started through the adoption process for the 2026 budget very shortly. So that's coming up. The other item that's on their agenda that came from me is we are in the process of looking at adopting a new blight control ordinance. Up to this point, actually our zoning ordinance has been the primary mechanism for handling blight issues. We also have tall weed ordinance, but we do not have a blight ordinance. It's focused on things like inoperable vehicles and junk and trash cleanup and such specifically. So we've had some issues with that where we've recognized we need a little something more, and so the board is in the middle of looking at that right now. So the second reading on the proposed ordinance is scheduled for their meeting next Wednesday.
Okay. Any comments or questions from commissioners with regard to Board of Trustees related items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next one is McDonald updates from ZBA. She's not here. I don't think they've met. So unless I hear otherwise, we'll just skip that one and move on. Next item is the Community and Economic Development Monthly Report, which once again is in your packet. If you had a chance to browse through it, I'll open it up at this time if there's any questions from commissioners on anything you might have seen in the monthly report. Hearing none, we'll move on. Any other reports or correspondence that needs to come to our attention? Okay, so we'll move on. Next item is public comment. This is the early public comment towards the front of our meeting that is restricted to 3 minutes on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone has a public comment they'd like to offer on a non-agenda item, they're invited to do so at this time. If you're in the room, come to the podium, which, does it have a microphone on it? Okay. And give us your name and address for the minutes and limit at least your initial comments to 3 minutes. This public comment is open at 7:06.
Good evening. My name's Tim Beebe. My address is 2257 East Broomfield Road. Just a comment on the blight. We have a blight ordinance in Chippewa Township. I'm the zoning administrator there. It's not quite the same type of community, Chippewa Township to Union Township, but we ended up going out and finding a police officer to go out to do the door-to-doors. And it's been a really good thing that we did. There are a number of sheriff's deputies that are looking for part-time work right now. So it was just an input. They asked me to go door to door, and I said, absolutely not. You can't pay me enough to go out and do that. So I would hate to see one of these two guys going out and doing that work. You may want to consider that.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments at this time?
There's nobody online.
Okay, we don't have anyone in the electronic room, and so we thank the public for their comments and go ahead and close that at 7:07. So we're ready to move on. We have one new business item tonight. It is a preliminary site plan review, 25-04, for Hance Real Estate Ventures parking lot expansion at 2185 East Pickard Road. Turned over to Rodney for the introduction.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate, I do appreciate Tim's comments and his concern for safety. I agree with that. We talk a lot about safety when it comes to ordinance enforcement. It's always a concern. It's one that we do err on the side of safety rather than risk and things like that. So I definitely appreciate Tim's comment. So for this item, you have our report. It's dated August the 8th. This is a preliminary site plan application. There's no new building. They're simply expanding the parking lot, and it is the size of the expansion that requires this preliminary and final site plan approval. In our ordinance, we allow small expansions up to 2,750 square feet, I think. So you can add a little bit of pavement with simply a minor site plan application. But this requires more because it also triggers our stormwater management ordinance. So they have to deal with the additional runoff that comes from the additional pavement. And that happens through this process. So you're seeing this plan, it's a preliminary site plan. This is considered to be a legal non-conforming site. So this is one of those projects that falls under section 12.5, non-conforming sites. It is really the primary reason it might be called non-conforming is that it would not, the landscaping would not necessarily meet today's standards. Relatively minor issue, but today's landscaping standards is a little different than what was in place when the project was adopted. Otherwise, it's a beautiful site and very well maintained. But the benefit is because it falls under this as we've talked about before, with a non-conforming site, you have the ability to review it and take action on a site plan that doesn't necessarily bring everything up to the current ordinance requirements for site development, but instead focuses on certain important or key elements. Public safety deficiencies being one, and then there's 10 broad categories of other potential site improvements, and applicants are asked to address at least 3 of those. In this case, they've more than met that requirement, as noted in our report. with the scope of the improvements. They're fully consistent with section 12.5. You see our report, the plans are in very good shape overall. Just a couple of details. One is that a land combination is required. This property is currently a separate parcel in the back where the new parking lot would be. You'll see a condition of approval to ask for that land combination to be completed before construction begins. Because there's no building improvement, there's no building permit. Usually we tie it to issue a building permit. In this case, we're tying it simply to the start of construction. The other item on the list was related to the internal sidewalk. If you're looking at the plans, they're proposing to put the new sidewalk out front. It's proposed to be entirely within the road right-of-way, so essentially leads right up to the curb. There's very little right-of-way along that stretch of Pickard Road, so they're squeezing a 7-foot sidewalk into that space. And then they're proposing a section of internal sidewalk connector coming back from the road into the property. And currently on the plan, you'll see an angled crosswalk. And it's angled basically to connect with an existing sidewalk on the other side of the driveway. What we've asked is that they straighten that out. For any time we have pedestrian crossings, we want them to cross in the shortest distance possible. It's perfectly fine that it crosses there in the middle of the driveway as it's going back, but it needs to be done essentially to 90 degrees. So one of those two sections of sidewalk needs to be extended a little further to create that 90-degree crossing. So that is the second condition that we've recommended. With that in mind, actually, those are the two items on our list. We're happy to recommend this to you for your consideration. And as I said, we do recommend it for approval, subject to the two conditions that we just talked about. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you go along.
Would you anticipate that this would be a case where the final approval would likely occur administratively?
I would expect that, yes. Assuming they make these changes related to the conditions, it could be definitely approved administratively.
Other questions for Rodney while he's up there?
The angles and questions, are those a saw cut, 2-foot listed here? 'Cause I know, I happen to use a dentist there, so I know the entranceway is kind of cut askew and then cuts in. On the new proposal here, would those just be hard angled sidewalks there versus what we see here, which is the slanted?
This crosswalk.
This crosswalk here, so that's the one you were talking about.
That's the crosswalk that's at an angle right now. So they're just going to have to extend that internal sidewalk on one side or the other of the driveway further to be able to have a 90-degree crossing point.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative.
Good evening, my name's Tim Beebe, I'm with Central Michigan Surveying and Development. Here on behalf of the owners of the property. They're looking at expanding their parking based on their need, not necessarily based on ordinance requirements. And that's why they had picked up that rear lot. So Rodney went through everything with you. If you do have any other questions, I'm happy to answer. If there's something specific regarding the plans, try and answer any questions you have.
Any immediate questions for the applicant?
I guess my one would be, I know you said it was predicated by usage. Is that for further expansion by the Hertz group themselves? Because I know currently one of the units in there is vacant.
Yeah.
And they're
No,
operating the other. So I'm wondering what kind of then, like, they're not quite filled out yet. Are they anticipating with that rental going through?
On occasions, they have completely full parking lot. And so what they're looking at is they want to grow their business and expand into that area that's not leased. So if they're going to grow their business and they already have times that the parking lot is full, they're acknowledging that they need to expand that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And we have no issues with the two conditions. I think it'll have to be on the east side that I extend down, because I'm coming right up to that property line, so.
Other questions? Okay, I think we'll move into our deliberation. We may have more questions. If we do, you're here, so we can always ask them. So, next is commission review of the plan. It's before us. You have it in front of you. It's open for discussion and subsequent motion.
Ronnie, you said a few of the landscaping stuff was not in compliance now. Would that be resolved going forward in the new lot here, or is that part of the parcel to this development here, is getting them on board with that, or is that?
So basically, under the non-conforming site section, as I said, we essentially narrowed down what we focus on. The applicant essentially proposes these are the site improvements we would like to make to meet the minimum three requirements that are in section 12.5. So there's 10 broad categories. One of them is landscaping improvements. Parking is another one. Lighting improvements is another one. Building improvements. Various broad categories that they can work from. In this case, they chose not to do anything with landscaping. They actually have done some things with landscaping on the site. They have kind of been cleaning up and replacing, but not part of any site plan. They've just been beautifying the property. But it's not any major change, just clean up and such. But because they more than met the requirement. I think they have 5 categories that they satisfied. So more than met the minimum. At that point, we don't ask them to do anything with the landscaping. First of all, the site looks very nice. It's just simply, if it was a brand new site, like front yard landscaping, parking lot landscaping would be different. It'd be a little bit more than what they have there. But because this is amending an existing site, we focus only on these certain elements. And the reason we have this provision in the ordinance is really to allow sites like this, allow these businesses like this to be able to grow, to improve, without necessarily getting hammered with having to do everything the current ordinance does or requires. It's an older site. It's developed a number of years ago, sometimes many years ago. And it may not be suitable to get all the way to the current requirements. For example, this one has that stormwater basin right up front that really cramps the ability to do a whole lot up front. That's why the sidewalk is jammed right up to the curb. So they're just characteristics of an existing site that don't always work out to meet what the current ordinance says. And so we added this section 12.5 when we adopted the new ordinance in 2020, specifically to make it easier for exactly this kind of project to happen. So I just mentioned that really the only issue is that in terms of a deficiency is landscaping. It doesn't mean it doesn't look beautiful and it's not a great development site. It just simply is different from what our current ordinance requires. And that's okay. They've more than met the other requirements and we're happy to support it.
Great, thank you, I appreciate the clarity there. So I know this is tied up next to a residential housing next to it. How would the lighting that's going into the back there affect the residential view? Do you know if that's gonna be coming into them? I mean, honestly, if I was staying in a place that didn't have, 2 different lighting fixtures outside my window and then they kind of came up, is there a timer on those? Are they set to a degree where we don't know that we're going to that cause an undue harm to the person next door's?
So the exterior lighting is a final site plan detail, so that's why you're not seeing the details on this plan. Our ordinance is very strict related to lighting. We have maximum foot candle light intensity. That's at 10-foot candles. I don't recall the number at the property line, but it's essentially 0. It's just a hair above 0 at the property line, and that's at any property line. So the idea is that those fixtures are fully shielded, they're directed downward, and they're set up so that they're not they're not extending glare or light onto the neighbor's property. So with that in mind, I mean, there will be light back there. Right now, there's nothing. But the lighting that will be back there will be shielded, and so the ordinance is designed to ensure that those neighbors will not be impacted.
All right, thank you, Rodney.
Okay, I've got a question, which I think it's more for Tim than Rodney, but part of it is, I guess, for both. I noticed that when I look at the plan, the new parking lot is is observing the 10-foot setback, whereas the old one does not. Is that one of those pieces that is part of the new zoning ordinance that wasn't in effect when this was? Okay. Is that the main reason? I'm looking at this and it just strikes me, it's almost like they're two separate parking lots, because you've got this narrowed portion and then it, with an in and an out, as opposed to just making it like one big lot.
Getting the traffic to flow, right now you're coming down and making very hard 90-degree turns to get around that parking lot. So we're trying to give a little better access to the back. The other thing is with the drainage, we're actually trying to pull some of the drainage in those flares and that curb island that is actually on the southerly site. We're breaking that drainage and taking some of the drainage from the old site to the back. The detention basin that is up front, it was compliant at the time that it was put in. Adding any more water to that would not be possible. So we're trying to reduce the impact on that and take it back to an area that we have lots of room to store water.
Mm-hmm.
We did a test pit back there and got down, I think, 90 inches and found no water table. So we have nice dry soils for it to set and soak back into the water table.
Okay. So as far as traffic flow goes, the entrance onto the site from Pickard is on the west side of the property. Cars would go along that west side and then enter that back parking lot if they want to park there. But then when they're leaving, they could either exit that through that west side or they could exit through the east side.
Yeah, they could circle around in the new parking lot and then come back and get out and not have to go into that old parking lot. And that's kind of the goal, is to make that, focus that back parking lot so people want to go in and come back out and get into that drive and head out. And not get into that back parking area. That's where our barrier-free will be, that's where the dumpster is, and it's tight. You take a full-size double cab pickup in there, and it's tight.
What you're calling the back is the old one?
Now, the back parking lot is the north parking lot.
Yeah, the
which
new
is
part.
There's only one entrance and exit. It's the one on Pickard.
Yeah,
isn't the
there's,
second one.
yeah, that's what I'm, yeah. But there's two ways into and out of the new piece, because there's that island there
Right.
that separates the two halves. All right. Other questions? Okay, well, if you're satisfied, we can have a motion.
I move to approve PRESPR 25-04 preliminary site plan for the Hants Real Estate Ventures LLC parking lot expansion at 2185 East Pickard Road, PID 14-009-30-008-03 and -008-04 in the southwest quarter of Section 9 and in the OS Office Service Zoning District, finding that the site plan dated July 28, 2025 can comply with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 14.2.p required site plan information and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, revise the internal sidewalk and crosswalk improvements to replace the angled crossing with a directed 90-degree crossing of the driveway. And 2, a land combination application shall be submitted by the owner and approved by township staff prior to the start of construction for this project.
I'll support.
Okay, so the motion was made by Lapp and it was seconded by Hayes. And you heard the motion. Any further discussion? So the motion is to approve with the two stated conditions. So I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Oliver,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Quatrito,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Shingle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was 7 votes in favor, none opposed. So this has now been approved at the preliminary stage.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're ready to move on to our other business item, which is the master plan update. We've got a number of, some study results in our packet. Rodney will introduce this and then we'll have some discussion.
Right, thank you. So we have some good reading material, some interesting reading material. What you have before you, the two elements, the regional summary of the regional housing study and then the more detailed evaluation of township housing situation. These are part of an effort that the East Michigan Council of Governments, our regional planning agency, mostly focuses on transportation planning, but not entirely. They put together this project and hired this consultant, Bowen National Research, to put together a regional housing study. And you see in the set of slides, we'll start in the regional set of slides. Page number 33, I'll just reference pages on the packet. So it's page number 33. You have the map that shows the 8 counties that were part of this regional study. As part of that, the township and other local governments were offered the opportunity to essentially have a more detailed look at our community for a very reasonable fee. And so we did agree to participate in that, and so that's how we also invented the township result. But I'm not going to go through all the slides or highlight everything. There's a tremendous amount of information here. For the regional one, you're getting the summary of the summary, essentially, in these slides. These were the presentation slides that the consultant shared when he presented this information. If you would like the full study, it's several hundred pages long. But if you'd like to see the whole thing, we'd have to do. But this actually does a very, very good job of laying out the key findings and data for the region. Just a couple of highlights in the regional side. On the next slide, which is page 34 of your packet, there's a graphic there just titled Demographics, Overall Household Growth Trends. There are really two population-related measurements that are important in our planning work. One is population itself, what are the numbers? And then we also sort of have subsets of that of different income groups or other ways of breaking down populations. But really, what are the raw numbers? Are we growing, are we shrinking? And then But there's another number that's actually more important from a planning perspective, and that is what's happening to the number of households in the community. Because as you'll see, you can have a relatively stagnant or even declining population number, but an increase in the number of households. And there are a number of factors for that. But it's really the increase in number of households that puts the pressure on housing itself. Of course, more households means more units, more houses, more apartments that are needed to serve those households, even if each household is smaller in size. As we know, household size is decreasing. People are having fewer kids. In some cases, they're current younger set, they're not having children at all. And so household size is shrinking, but we're seeing many more cases of either couples or even single person households that are being created. That's why the number of households is actually increasing. We're also seeing cases on the older side of more households being created on that side of things too, at the older end of the spectrum of age groups. So this one, from a regional perspective, it just notes that the kind of the tagline there: positive projected household growth will add demand for housing for the foreseeable future. And that's, I think, the key thing for us is that regardless of where population numbers are, we need additional housing in our region and county, and we'll see in the township data as well, based on this particular data point here, increasing number of households. Skipping ahead a few slides, what I would say is that if there's anything that you were intrigued by or want to talk about, we certainly can. We can always go back. I just want to hit a few highlights. But we can, if there's something that really caught your eye that we don't talk about, certainly be happy to do that. On slide 54, or page 54 of the packet, you'll see here that it says housing gap estimates by submarket. And this is the starting point for looking at what is the need in the community. And this first one is rental housing on page 54 of the packet. And you'll see Isabella County is, of the region, Isabella County has the second highest need for rental housing, total of about 1,900 units. We'll see a number for the township in a minute, but it is a significant issue. We just met with some folks interested in doing some multiple family housing here. And one of the things we do tell people, we are overdeveloped for student housing in the township. But we are definitely underdeveloped in certain other kinds of rental housing, such as for professionals. There's a huge gap related to doctors, nurses, those kinds of professions that need quiet space. They might be working off hours, they might be sleeping during the day. They need quiet, and that market is not served at all in the community right now, really. But there's also professors, CMU, teachers, those professional areas, and also in young families as well. We have a significant gap, and it's simply because most of our rental housing has been geared for so long to students that it would either need to be renovated or replaced to deal with this very different desires and interests of this other market. So anyway, this gives you an idea of the gap in rental. On page 56, there's a similar graphic there showing the gap for overall for sale housing in the region, the gap that's needed. And here, Isabella County is a little further down the list, but still about 2,700 units short in this evaluation. I guess, are any questions on that? This was really, these were the key items I wanted to pull out of the regional summary. Was there anything that you saw that you would like to talk about or in this before we move to the township side?
Everybody needs housing. It's apparent throughout every county.
Yeah.
how like imperative it is right now to get more mixed housing too. People are saying that there's a lot of people I think that are of the professional class that you're talking about, but are still, I know, living in student, what we would consider student housing because that's the only options that are available.
Yeah, it's all that's available. Yeah, it is a significant challenge. And it's one we repeat over and over again. I'm glad to have the opportunity to repeat it here, that we'd love to see some of that student housing be repurposed. There's some, there's, for example, Timber Creek Apartments, which is our oldest apartment community, really, I think, in the township, 1968, 67, 68 it was built. It was luxury housing in 1967, 68. And certainly it could go back to that. Now, older buildings is tough, but the bones of that development are very solid, remarkably solid for the age, and they do a good job of maintaining it. But there are opportunities, perhaps, for some of these could be repositioned, and there have been some conversations about what if we did this, what if we changed units around, or join units together, various things that could be done. So I think that idea is beginning to get out there, but I'd love to get it out there even stronger, that there's a whole market we're not serving, that right now they're having to commute, they're having to find housing elsewhere and commute into community for their work. And we'd rather they be here. With that in mind, if we could, we'll turn over to the township side for just a bit. We have a few more highlights. So this, as I said, this was a supplemental study where they looked at our community more specifically. Actually, I want to start on page 65 of the packet. And here I want to show you the downside, the down numbers. We have here on page 65 of the packet, it's titled Demographics up at the top. We have a graphic there, a chart, the total population by year for the township. So you see 2010, 2020, 2024, which is their most current estimate year, and then 2029, which is their projection. And you see 2010, 13,000 people. 2020, 11,699. And from there, we're seeing essentially the projections, the estimates creeping back up from there. So now, today, we're essentially, I think actually the most recent estimate I saw was about 11,900. This one's from 2024, so 11,700. But anyway, the numbers are down significantly from 2010. And we have a number we've had a number of cases where folks have cited this to say, hey, look, we're failing as a community, our population is down. We'll talk in a minute about households, again about that, but more important, I actually want to talk about another element. The 2020 census for our community was significantly flawed. If you remember, 2020 census took place at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Central Michigan University was closed. The students had all been sent home just a few weeks before the census count. The dorms were closed. Everybody was gone. And then they took the count. And so we were severely undercounted from that population. And the student population is a significant part of our community. And so I believe that this number is not accurate. The 2020 number simply was not accurate at all. And the problem is that the projections from there are based on that number. So where are we? Am I going to claim we're at 13,000? No. And we have data in this for that as well, because there's some information there about student population at Mid-Michigan College and CMU that shows the decline. I think we may get to it, but I'll just mention it. Talks about 2015, the combined student population of the two institutions was, I think, about 31,000. The combined student population in 2024 was 14, I think, something like that. We'll get to it. Big number, big difference. And so the the decline is real, just what is the actual decline is kind of question. But nonetheless, there's a real population decline that's reflected in the data. The next slide, oh, there we go. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. The next slide, there you go, is the total enrollment on page 66 of the packet. So there you see, I'm sorry, I was a little low, 2023 is last year. And the data is 17,800 for total combined student population between the two institutions, down from 31 in 2015. So significant difference there. I will say certainly the CMU has been working very hard on changing that, and I believe their numbers are now higher. I obviously don't know what current numbers are, but what I've heard and what I've been told is that they're seeing that those numbers turn around a bit. We're also dealing right now with simply the fact there are fewer students of college age. Again, we have that sort of long baby bust cycle that we've been in, and that is now reflected in high school and entering into college years with some pretty significant reductions in simply the number of potential students. Okay, any questions on those items?
I think it's worth noting, when we talk about enrollment numbers versus residents, that's a huge gap. When we start talking about 31,000 students in 2015, that included what was called at that time our global campus. Many of those individuals don't matriculate on the Mount Pleasant campus, so they don't live here. They live in Washington, D.C., they live in Atlanta, Georgia, Richmond, Virginia, wherever that global campus site was. So I think there needs to be an asterisk there to note that, because when we start talking about economic impact and residency and those kinds of things, it's a false positive in terms of the number. And I've mentioned this before in terms of how those numbers are reported. The census numbers obviously reflect more accurately, but CMU enrollment numbers, as well as Mid-Michigan, because Mid-Michigan enrollment numbers could reflect Clark County residents, not Mount Pleasant, although a significant number of individuals enrolled at Mid-Michigan now live in Mount Pleasant, because we have a Mount Pleasant campus where we previously had a Mount Pleasant site, but now there's actually a Mount Pleasant campus. So that somehow has to be noted. I don't think that 31,000 reported is ever coming back again. To your point of, that's all we have to do is look at the number of high school graduates, and that number is declining and actually falling off a cliff in 2030. So just worth noting, just so that we understand the dynamics of how that growth is going to be measured. It can't be measured by enrollment numbers. It's just a false positive.
Sorry, I wanted to clarify. Is this program, this global program, something that was is no longer in Central Michigan University, or is it just?
It is. It's called Innovation and Online now, and that's a crowded market. The university thrived in that market for a long time because of the military connection since 9/11. There's been tremendous decline because we don't own that market with the military anymore.
Okay, so it's just loss of market share and not
Correct.
like a shutting of the program.
Well, it's both, because
Okay.
that program, there are different programs that just aren't as relevant as they were.
Okay.
It was a satellite school program, so they're
Correct.
physical. If you were in a different neighborhood or region, you could go to physical locations, where now, like a lot of schools, are transitioning more to online-based remote learning.
Well, and here's just a more, this is, obviously don't quote me on these numbers, but at a high, CMU's on-campus enrollment never exceeded 21,000.
What the number?
But the global campus has been as high as 9,000.
Yeah, that was a number that I remember back in 2008, 2009.
Correct.
When I went there,
That
was in the
yeah.
20,000s, low 20,000s.
Correct. That's when President Rao was here, and that was at
Yeah.
the enrollment peak. And
Gotcha.
then 2010 is when we start to see that 2010 was actually the peak, and then it started to decline after that.
I can tell you exactly why too.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's several.
Horrible recession.
What's that?
It was a horrible recession.
Yes.
Myself and many of our peers headed for better hills
Mhm.
during those years.
Yeah. And again, I think when we're reporting, you know, these numbers, and of course, several of us work for the university, so we understand how that's, you know, I know Tom's served in various capacities, alumni board, and those kinds of things, where you have a better understanding. This is true, but it's not accurate.
The slope of the line is different.
Yes, and I think that, especially as you're talking about planning, because I sat in these meetings and listened to developers come in, and they're hearing, a president say, Central Michigan University will have 30,000 students on its CMU campus. That's not realistic. The infrastructure doesn't support it, nor does the demographics in terms of the number of high school graduates. It doesn't matter how many international students you bring in. So again, that was just more of an FYI, just so that as we're predicting, forecasting, and more importantly, expecting, those numbers are never going to be, there'd have to be an invasion from Mars for us to get,
Which requires a different type of housing.
That's a different type of housing, absolutely. So I guess we could do shuttles, do them to the moon, but no, in all seriousness, it's just, and of course, we've increased international students, out-of-state students, but we're doing that in states that are declining, because this is an overall population decline, not just, Michigan is just more extreme than some of the other states, and it's coming. All of the forecasters who do that, and I'm not an enrollment management expert, but it's going to be more compounded. So just something to know.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate the clarification on that. All right, let's turn to page 68 of the packet. And this is where we see our households. And you see, we saw the population decline in numbers, but here we see the chart with households increasing. Down between 2010 and 2020, as I said, that I think at least in part we have flawed 2020 census data, but what we're seeing from there is we're seeing a pretty significant increase. And this data, if you dig into what Bowen National Research says, it's a combination of available estimates and their own work. They do a lot of their own research for these numbers. So they're doing their own surveys, their own research to pull these numbers together in an accurate way. And on the next slide, page.
Could I interject?
Oh, good. Yeah.
So first of all, that page is numbered 69 on my packet.
Oh.
I don't know.
Right.
The one that has total households by year, if that's what you were talking about.
Yep. Okay.
But so I wanted to go back to the page just before that, which is the select population characteristics by area. Other than the poverty level where it specifies they're talking about the population of under 18, what population is that the percentage of? Because 72.7% unmarried strikes me as pretty high.
So we do have, this is significant because of our student population, but not entirely. We, in Isabella County in general, and in the township in particular, our numbers skew young and old. They skew high at the young end, college, basically college folks, or young recent graduates, and then we skew at the older end, where we're part of that trend in Michigan of an aging population, where the older end are
Okay.
increasing.
But is it when it says percent? It says It just says, higher share of unmarried population. Is that all people, or is that adults? Or do we
It
know?
would be adults, they would not be counting children in that number.
Okay, so 18 and up. All right. And then the other one that struck me is, like, in the middle, the college degree. I didn't think the state of Michigan's percentage was anywhere near 41%. That's actually a lot higher than I thought.
Yeah.
So, just a little surprised by some of the numbers.
It is interesting. Some things, oh yeah, that makes sense, but yes, we're often surprised. I agree, that number is higher than I expected as well. But there has been a huge push in this area now for quite some time to encourage folks to get degrees. And college degree can be a community college with an associate's degree would meet that requirement. And with the efforts right now to allow through the state programs to have free tuition to get an associate's degree if you don't have one. For a while it was 25 and older. I think now it's actually younger than that you can qualify for that free tuition. There are many more that are pursuing those, especially the associate's degrees, to be able to up their skill level. Any other thoughts on those items?
I was impressed that the Charter Township Union's rate for college degrees is 48.5%. It does meld a little weird with the fact that we are a region with some of the lowest high-income jobs, so that says to me too that how are we going to hold on to that demographic
Yeah, because once they graduate, there's no reason to stay.
without having the proper opportunities in town to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
How do we attract those high-paying jobs here? How do we get industry to come here?
And you'll see that at the end of this, if you may have already read the end of the story, they talk about some strengths, weaknesses, and such, and that's one of the items that you mentioned. And very aware of it. Let's see. Let's flip on ahead. I have it noted as slide 82. We'll see if it actually is. I'd already printed the book before the package was printed, so I wrote the numbers and writing them. It's the one. This one that has the graphic here. The commuting and outgoing. So
That'll be page 83 on our packet.
Okay, well, I'll just add one then. Everything. So page 83. This is an interesting one. Actually, another one that has some positive elements to it. This talks about where people live versus where they work. You see the circle in the middle with the 313 on it. These are people, and this is in their own survey work, their estimate based on population, 313 that live in the township, work in the township. So in their survey, that arrangement. So it's not a huge number, but a starting point. The inflow into the community, and these are folks who work outside of the township, live outside the township and work in the township, is 4,044. You add those two numbers together, you're up over about 4,350 or so, 4,300 certainly people that are coming into the community or live here and work here, and then 3,800 work somewhere else. Now their arrows are going off to the east. I suspect that's probably not inaccurate. That we have a number of folks that live here and work over towards Midland with Dow or other things, but this is all the outflow. They're simply working somewhere else, so we have more folks coming into the community to work than are leaving. But this 4,044 number is also an opportunity. It's one of those. What can we do to help attract those folks to live here as well as work here? And to some extent, that is providing more housing and more opportunities for that types of housing that people are looking for. What I mentioned earlier about doctors, and had conversations with our hospital leaders who've said we have doctors that are commuting from Lansing, commuting from southeast Michigan to work in our hospital here. They simply can't find housing that's suitable for them, and so they're having to commute from very long distance away in order to make things work for their housing situation. So one of the areas where hopefully we can, in terms of our planning, we can look at trying to broaden our housing mix and hopefully attract new housing opportunities that can make some of these commuters into residents. The other side of it was what was already just said, is how do we to attract new types of jobs, new industrial, new high-tech, whatever those things may be, the higher-end, higher-paying jobs that can help some of those outgoing commuters to be able to stay here as well. And that's a significant part of what I do on the economic development side, and what our Middle-Michigan Development Corporation is doing on that side. But there's certainly always more to do.
Ronnie, can I pull back to page 75 just for a quick second? Just something I noticed that I think plays on the other side of this. It said, going forward, 62.8% of renting households in Charter Township will continue to earn less than $50,000 through 2029, and 45.2% will continue to earn less than $25,000 annually. I guess my concern comes with, how do we attract these new people in to fill those higher income, housing and renting things, but at the same time not abandon these people making under 25 annually that are still going to need quality, affordable housing. A lot of places you can see, as you attract in those higher income people to stay and work in the neighborhood, it inevitably forces out the people that are at that cutoff. As more people become willing to pay more here, we're going to see more people that are on that lower income sphere starting to get pinched.
Yeah, it is a real problem. We have right now we have 4 active what I refer to as tax credit low income properties. These are ones where the state of Michigan provides a tax credit for the development of low income housing that's essentially rent controlled. The township also participates in that. We have a tax abatement process for that. And right now there are 4 projects. There used to be 2 more. One fell out of that program to become very low-income housing. The listening ear folks bought it, and it's now focused on folks coming out of homelessness. So it no longer fits in the tax credit project type of thing, but still very in the low-income housing sphere. One other one fell out of it to become market rate housing. And it was something that was in process when I came here. It was already well on its way. It was a 3-year transition. Essentially, after a certain point, after a certain age, after this type of housing is developed, the developer can choose to take it out of the low-income housing program. They pay some penalties for that, but they can take it out and make it market rate. But they have a 3-year transition process for that. So that project did come out of it. It's now market rate housing. We had a developer that bought several other low-income housing developments and came to the township to let us know their intent to convert it to market rate. And we were able to work with them, and we were able to help them understand, first of all, that we have plenty of market rate housing. We, like I said, overdeveloped in student housing. We don't need more in that same realm. But we have 0 vacancy. Essentially, the low-income housing is a 0 vacancy. You'll see that in these numbers. So we don't want to lose any of those that we already have. And anyway, the township actively worked with the developer, and we were able to put things together and help. And also, they worked with MISTA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, and were able to get some adjustments made that allowed them to keep those projects in that environment. So they're going to remain going forward low-income housing. But it took a very active effort on the township's part to make that happen. Because they were already down the road. They were essentially started, and they were just notifying us, and we were able to turn the bus and get it back on the track that it needed to be on. The problem actually right now is it so far has proven very, very difficult to develop new low-income housing. The state of Michigan has a scoring system for projects to get the tax credits, and right now they have 2 categories: urban and rural. And they have then two levels of tax credit, 4% projects or 9% projects. Everybody wants the 9%, because the numbers work better there. The problem is, in order to get the 9%, even to get the 4%, you have to score very high on this scoring chart. And for communities in Michigan that are labeled as urban, you're essentially competing against City of Warren, City of Detroit, City of Grand Rapids, City of Kalamazoo, the big communities. That because of the nature of those communities, essentially they have a lot higher score on that scoring chart. Because of how the map was created, that serves our state right now, Mount Pleasant and almost all of the urban area, almost all the sewer district for our township, Union Township, is considered urban. The only area that is considered rural that's in our sewer district is down the street here, next door to the Crestwood Assisted Living Facility. There's the sewer comes under the road and ends at the assisted living, and there's a couple of vacant lots there that are residential and are considered to be rural for purposes of this chart. So we've had a number of these low-income housing developers that have looked at those properties because they qualify and it will be easier for them to get to the high scores they need for the state tax credits. Even there, though, so far, we haven't had any be successful. We'll work with them. We're happy to work with them. We've had some look at other sites that are in the urban area of the township on the map. We have also pushed MISTA to change the map because, frankly, both us and Mount Pleasant really should be in the rural category. It doesn't make any sense that we're urban and arguing with communities that are 10 times or 20 times our size. But that's the problem on the low-income housing side right now, is trying to get to that tax credit threshold. Other comments or questions? I just have a couple more. All right, we'll move forward. Let's go to probably page 95 in the packet, right near the end. It's a spreadsheet there. Up at the top, it's titled Development Opportunity Sites. And it has a list of 11 sites. These were ones that we worked with the researchers to identify. Not all of them are residential. We did identify some sites that are either mixed zoning or zone business that could be residential sites based on the character and what's going on around them. One of these is over Butt Street, south of Jameson Park. They're next door to, I think, the Hampton Inn. There's a large vacant lot, about 88 acres there. It is number 74 on this list. It's Zone B7 business. It's been vacant for a long time with the park next door, with residential behind that area. This is a site, and good sewer capacity. This is a site that could go for something else. Even the B7 district right now, it could go for what's called a mixed-use development that would allow commercial and residential. But from the perspective of development, it could be a good high-density residential site on its own. Obviously, it need to be rezoned, but it's one of those items that would be on our list as we're looking at the future land use map to consider what do we want to do with that. So just some sites there. You'll see, as I said, a few of them are business. Most of them are low-density residential. That category, generally you see that category where we don't have a lot of sewer capacity. We have enough to allow for essentially single-family home development, but we don't have enough sewer capacity to allow for a higher density project. So where you see the R2B or you see R3, those are ones where generally we have higher sewer capacity available. So on your table, and it's in the slide set as well, but I want to give you the bigger version. Ask our GIS specialist to put a map together of the sites. She didn't number them, but just to give you an idea of where these sites are, they're all in the red on the map. And so it just kind of gives you a picture for where these properties are in the community. A number of them on this side of town. There's the vacant land to the north of us on the other side of Pickard Road, and up to River Road. There are several properties there that fit within that realm of kind of lower density housing. Yes.
It seems like for low-income housing, transportation is going to be a key issue. So it seems like prioritizing, if you get to that point of actually developing, prioritizing places that are on either routes with sidewalks or routes with some kind of access for people who aren't necessarily driving cars.
Transit.
Yeah, that would, I think, be a really important thing to keep in mind too, when you're looking at development sites.
Yeah.
Because this, space off north here on Lincoln, lovely space and lovely place to live. I highly recommend this area of town, or this area of the county. But at the same time, you have to drive everywhere. There's absolutely no way to walk. I mean, you see people walking, but you take your life in your hands when you walk on Lincoln.
Very little way to walk.
No, I mean, people do walk on it, but I mean, I really think that you have to think about that when you're trying to prioritize spaces, is think about very carefully who is going to be using this space and the fact that many of them may not have cars or access to cars.
Well, and one thing, I apologize if I created confusion. This map is not just for low-income housing or multiple family housing. This is simply, these are spots that are good for potential residential development at various scales. And certainly this area on Lincoln, we're near the end of the sewer pipe, if we go north on Lincoln up to River. So it's going to be lower density housing, not low income, but low density housing.
Right.
There's simply no way to do multiple family in there with our sewer capacity. And yes, absolutely, in fact, this is one of the conversations we've had with the low-income developers, because most of our low-income housing is on Isabella Road, over basically around Broomfield to Bluegrass, that space there. No sidewalks, no connectivity to anything, that's a huge challenge. It's one we're trying to work on over time, but we're working on sidewalks, getting them all on Bluegrass and Broomfield. We haven't even gotten to the point of extending them on Isabella. There's no point in putting them on Isabella if we don't have the connectivity to get into town from there.
Right.
So you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I'm specifically saying low income for that. I mean, I think it's nice to have an idea already of where you're sort of looking at potential residential development.
Yeah. So that one of the strengths we have actually in this community is we have available property that's zoned for residential, planned for it, has water and sewer to it, that was designed for the zoning. So we can't increase it, but what it's zoned for, we can do it. So we have sites available, and the challenge really has been on the development side. We simply don't have developers working in that space right now. In part, construction costs are very, very high. Labor costs are very, very high. It costs $400,000 to build a modest single-family home. Certainly well over $300,000. Those are numbers that you can't imagine even 5 years ago. And so to develop a subdivision, for example, or to develop an apartment community, that is a very large risk. And so one of the things that the regional plan looks at is how to mitigate that risk somewhat. How do we try to find ways to incentivize some things that help to mitigate that risk? The state is also doing that. They have some new tools potentially available. Things are just starting to come online that will help to balance the risk a little bit for the development community. But on the housing side, there is a lot of risk for developers. And so what we've generally seen is developers infilling existing subdivisions where there are vacant lots, and they're buying those and putting a single home on it and selling that home, rather than developing new neighborhoods or new projects. Well, that gets us right to the end here. The last thing on my list would be slide 98, if my amended count is correct. It's titled Housing Gap. You'll see on that page some numbers there down towards the bottom. There's a part of the bottom paragraph that says, overall, it's estimated that Charter Township Union has a minimum rental housing gap of 663 units and a minimum for sale housing gap of 344 units. So right now, the demand is that we could have 344 new for sale homes or condominiums, and they would go. And I wouldn't be surprised at all that it would go very quickly, because there is a real need for new housing. Same thing, 600 units of rental housing that at a minimum we could fill. And we had the same thing, like I said, we might be overbuilt for student housing, but we've talked about already, there is a demand for the better rental housing that simply does not exist here. And so when units become available, they are snapped up very quickly. And then on the following slide, and this will be the last one, title strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This table here just kind of gives you a quick synopsis of what they found and what they recommend as priorities. We talked about, essentially talked about those, prioritizing those commuters coming in. We have the land available, we have development opportunities there, and definitely have issues with almost virtually zero vacancy at the low-income housing side. So these are just some, for them, the priority takeaways that they had from their look at our community that I think are important to consider as we're moving forward from here. So that brings me to the end of the quick run-through of the information. So I guess my question is, what have you learned, or what did you, is there anything else that you found compelling that we should be talking about?
You know, this kind of made me thinking of this last part here about just how thin that margin of availability is and how quickly anything that gets on the market gets snagged. It's something that came up a few meetings ago where we had someone come in about Airbnbs and about that rental. And we had someone come in who was in this unique space where they had another facility that they had built on their existing land for a relative that was no longer around. But since that time, I went on and did some research online. And I found, just personally and like just anecdotal looking, maybe 12.5 people that have purchased properties in our township specifically for Airbnb rentals. People that are promoting like, oh, this is my third house that I purchased in the neighborhood, for Airbnb. Come find us online. And that just reeks. It just doesn't sit right with me, I guess, when I see such a need for housing, to then see what comes across to me a little bit like a hoarding situation, and it's seen how that's affected, people like Traverse City and Gaylord that have higher housing needs than ours, as it is already, that have looked to ban it, but just question if self-reporting that we have right now for that type of venue is has enough teeth in it,
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because what you're telling me is that it's time for us to do another look. It's been a little while since we've done this. In terms of ordinance enforcement, we are not patrolling the township, whether digitally or in person. Obviously, we have eyes out. We have employees that watch. We certainly have people that let us know when they see something going on in their neighborhood, and when we're out and about, we look, we notice things, and respond to them. But there's not a dedicated zoning patrol going street to street watching for violations. In the same way, there's not a dedicated patrol online going on the Airbnb site or Verbo site. We have done that before, and in fact, you experienced the result of that. We had a project come here before you for a special use permit. And so what you're telling me is it's time to do it again. Because those sites, not only do they need the special use permit from you, because that's right now it's a special use, it's a public hearing, but also they are subject to our rental housing inspection program. And that is as important to me as the special use process is. I want the neighbors to know, just so everybody's aware, it's all above board. But more importantly, that rental housing inspection and certification process is all about safety. And while some homes are perfectly set up to be rental units, there are a number that aren't, especially older properties. We often see folks have to make significant changes in order to meet the minimum safety requirements for the property maintenance code in our housing licensing ordinance. And one of those that came up actually in a previous review of those online sites ended up choosing not to go into the short-term housing because of the scope of improvements that were needed for safety, to be a part of the rental program. So,
One thing I'll add on to that is I think it's a good idea to start for us to look at that again, because if we're going to start building new housing, whether it's, regardless of what level of income it is, you're going to have those who are going to look at that and go, it's an opportunity. I'm going to snatch up these properties and put them on Airbnb or Vrbo. And speaking from experience, when I lived in Houston, one of the things that they started doing was building those little small postage stamp sized 3-story townhomes. And I did a little bit of Uber driving for a while in between jobs, and I went to one of the brand new neighborhoods, and there were like maybe 3 units that belonged to actual people that lived there. The rest of them, out of I think it was 50 units, all of them, Vrbo and Airbnb. And I would hate to see that happen here.
Yeah, if we already have a shortage of households and they're getting snapped up instantaneously, there just might not be the opportunity for the hoarders to get any more than they already have. So if we do increase any number of housing, we could see definitely an uptick in people who are doing short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll forgive me for a moment, I'm going to look at that camera up there and just invite those that may be watching this, that it's far better to come to us and apply for the things that need to apply for, special use permit and the rental certification, than for us to find them. Because there are some potential penalties that apply when folks are doing things they shouldn't and are caught and have to do after the fact requests for that kind of stuff. So there you go. I put it on the record on our video as well, since we don't have an audience here. And we will certainly run the check again. It's been a little while since we've done that, and see where we are. And if you find something, since we have some folks who are interested in this, if you find out about things, please share them. You can email Peter, or email them to me if you prefer to email them to me. But Peter is our zoning administrator, so he's the direct ordinance enforcement official for that. So if you see something online, screenshot it, share it with them. Hey, this is what I saw. If you certainly hear of an address or know of an address where you think something's going on, let us know. What happens with any enforcement action, the first contact is informal. You may have a problem. It's not you're in violation because we don't know that for sure. It's, even if we see Facebook posts or whatever and they have addresses or Airbnb, so our first response is always, this is what's going on, this is what we've learned. You may be a violation, this is how you solve it. Like I said, one of those cases that we had the last time, although they were listed in one of those directories, they had not started yet. And so they technically were not in violation. Because just listing there is not a violation, it's doing it that is a violation. Anyway, so please share those, and we treat everybody respectfully, and we assume that they're not in violations. We're essentially inviting a response. And only when we have that information that there is an issue, then we help them solve it. All right. Well, that, like I said, that brings to the end of what I have for these.
I have a question and then a couple comments. I was looking at the SWAT thing, and they mentioned one of the threats was the roughly 3,900 people who commute to a job outside the township.
Mm-hmm.
But is there any thought as to what fraction of those people commute to a job in Mount Pleasant? I mean, I'm assuming if you drive into the city, that's not the township, so they must be in that group as well, right?
They would be in that group, yes.
Okay, so that's got to be a large portion of those. This is really nice. I like this map. I was comparing it to our future land use map and our existing master plan. And I was happy to note that the majority of what you've highlighted in red here, the majority of them are already designated for residential use. Not all of them, but the majority are. I think one of the things that I would be interested in knowing would be if there's this demand out there, we have developers who build single-family homes, multifamily homes, whatever. Why aren't they building more stuff if there's this demand out there? Is it because the demand is they don't perceive it as being at the higher end, which is what they want, or is it, is it, what we've heard before from some sectors, is it that there's too much regulation or too much of this or that? I would just be curious to know what why there isn't that, more development going on.
It's interesting on the regulation side. That's certainly one of the comments. The township is over-regulated. Our rules for residential development have not significantly changed since the 1991 zoning ordinance, or even earlier in some cases. Our subdivision ordinance, which is one of the ways to do a residential, single-family development, is a subdivision plat. That ordinance is the same. It dates back to 1994 or something like that. Hasn't changed. The state law has been updated, and actually, we have to follow some things in the state law that have become a little bit easier. We just haven't amended the ordinance to get there yet. But we follow the state law even though our ordinance is older. But the rules haven't changed. On the zoning ordinance side, even though we have a new zoning ordinance, the requirements that would apply to condominium development, multiple family development, aren't that significantly different. Landscaping might be a little bit more robust than it was in 1991, but not that much. And in fact, in some cases, it might actually be easier to develop today than it was under the 1991 ordinance. Just because things are a little more clear, and setbacks are reduced in some cases, parking requirements are reduced for multiple family in some cases. So the comment that we're over-regulating is simply not true. I'm thinking maybe we'll try to see if we can get one or two of the developers. I don't know if they will, but we'll see if maybe we can get somebody to come in and talk about it, because I think it'd be worth hearing from them directly. From my perspective, what I see is, number one, just simply the high cost of materials and labor. Those numbers are crazy. You go into Home Depot, and if you can remember what you paid for that 2x4 in 2019, look at what you're paying for that 2x4 today.
Yeah.
A sheet of plywood, oh my gosh. So that's what the residential construction folks are doing as well. They might be able to get some things wholesale. Maybe it's a little bit of a break, but in reality, they're paying those same multiples. And then the other side of that, and part of that really, is the high cost of labor. For reasons we've talked about, there are fewer people. And we have a lot of skilled trades folks that are aging out, that are older and not working as much as they did. In this community, there are a number of folks in the development community that are beginning to age out and are not as motivated and they're not as driven as they may have once were. So they're also much more risk averse than they might have been 10, 15 years ago. So those are the pieces of the puzzle that we're dealing with here. That is certainly affecting what happens. I think there is another number, that population decline number, the raw number of scares folks. They're not looking at the household number going up, they're looking at the population number going down and saying, hey, where's my market? What they're not looking at is those niche markets. And that was a conversation we had with the folks that came to us the other day. It's a conversation we have over again. We may not have everybody wants to build student housing because it's a college town. That's overdeveloped. But if you look over here, this market's underdeveloped. So even if overall it may not be growing, but this market you could serve and have a great result. So that's the other piece of the puzzle, is helping folks change their perspective and look at new opportunities. And it's been a hard one here. It's been very hard to get people to look at it differently. Generally, where we've had success, it's from folks that are not the older line development crowd, but they're folks either that are moving in from out of the area, or they are from out of the area and see an opportunity here. Those are the folks we generally can and already see it, or we can help them to see that there might be something they want to explore.
Yeah. The other piece of this that you just mentioned, when I was preparing to read this, I thought that I was going to find that there was a large vacancy rate in that student housing. It looks like they looked at 4 large complexes. I don't know which ones. I don't know whether they were all student. I don't know whether there were some significant ones that they didn't look at. But I was surprised that the vacancy rate wasn't higher. I don't know if that's because they're letting fewer students live in each unit to keep them occupied or what they're doing. But I have to believe, I mean, Stan and I went through this, and Peter, in the late 2000s and early 2000 teens, we approved all these big developments. And I can't believe that, I understand that a professional is not probably going to want to live in a large development like that, at least not for a long period of time. But when you talk about potential affordable housing, other sorts of things like that can be retrofit, and they can be, because some of those complexes are less than 20 years old still.
Yeah, there certainly are opportunities. And I think we're seeing, as Commissioner Hayes said earlier, we're seeing people that are living in this type of housing. They're not students anymore. They may have once been, but others, this is simply the housing they have available. So I think that also is keeping those vacancy numbers down, because the demand is there simply to have any kind of housing that's convenient to where you work and such. So that's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and maybe a higher lack of transitional housing out of that, condominiums that people could buy that are affordable, things that people can move to long-term housing. I know lots of people that are still in those student housing because there's not really another option for them to get out to someplace nicer. I mean, they like to stay here, they like to settle down and, be part of this community long-term, but that housing crunch is making it hard for them to do it in a place that really feels like a quality home for them.
To answer your question about the why aren't developers making more housing, another thing that I've read reports on is just the fact that, like, with the material cost does not scale linearly with the square footage of a house. And so it costs almost as much money to build a 800 square foot starter home for a small family as it does a 1,600 square foot or a 3,200 square foot, because the square footage is just empty space. And the developers just want to get the most cash available, and they are the ones that are pursuing the projects like the McMansions. Just because, a $400,000 house costs almost as much to build as a $150,000 house. So why wouldn't you pocket the $250,000 extra?
So thank you for your comments. The last item on our list is right at the end of the packet is the housing plan element. Starts on page 104. This is I just wanted to get your response. We're starting to put this piece together, and I wanted to get your response to the data that you've seen. So the first part of it, the part that's under Director's Note number 1, the part that's in the box, the text box, this is new. It's just it simply took what you shared with me before about your priorities for housing when we did the framework for the master plan document, and I essentially turned it into a purpose statement and a goal statement. And so I just want to get what we're doing with each of these sections. We'd like to have that statement up at the top that kind of, this is why this is important. And so I want to just make sure that we're on the right track with what we wrote there, and if there's anything we should add or emphasize differently. And then the second part, Director's Note number 2, you see down there, Part E, Plan for Housing, and we have a number of bullet points. This is your framework. This is what we worked on and what you asked us to build the master plan section for housing on. And so here again, based on what you've learned tonight, based on what you gained from this information, is there anything we need to change or anything we need to add to these bullet points as we're putting the document together, this section of the master plan? And one vote shaking head no.
He doesn't
Don't
think about
ever
it.
question anybody on it.
No, I think it's mostly, it's mostly relevant and apt for, what we've been talking about. One reaction I have is under the plan, number 7, yes, we should strike a careful balance, but I think the days of people coming to us with developments for large student complexes are gone. At least, they'll eventually, even the ones built in, 2010 will eventually become old and they'll want to build probably something new. But they're not going to be coming with those. So, something along the lines, I worry about, whether any of them are just going to kind of become vacant or not, no longer, useful or whatever. So some sort of, kind of transition to other types of housing or reuse or something would be, perhaps of interest. But
Yeah.
overall, I think it's good.
Do you want to, talk about number 7, you want to simply strike the second sentence, bluegrass area remains the best? Because in reality, the bluegrass area is also very good for other things. For professional housing, that's an area that is connected in. A sidewalk network is not perfect there, but it's mostly there, and you are close to amenities and things. You can't walk. We have a ton of people that walk on Bluegrass Road and Encore. So it might actually, if you're comfortable with it, it might actually be a good thing to strike that sentence that talks about that area for being for student housing.
I would suggest then that you actually add maybe a phrase about appealing to sort of a young professional. If that's the demographic that we're really looking to hold, because that's the one we're losing,
Yeah.
that might make sense to highlight that instead.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a place where you would imagine these, potentially these developments that are, commercial on the ground floor and have residences above and so on. I wish Tim was still here because I could ask him. He's been to us a couple times with a potential project that didn't get off the ground the first time, and then we talked again. Do you know if that's still possibly? I think it was going to be on Broomfield, though.
The Den at Broomfield it was called, and the developer, this was I believe a doctor, I think, that owned the property, and this was part of his investment side of things. He was unable to get the bank to move. He got caught up in COVID, got caught up in the credit crunch that came out of COVID, and he simply stopped working on it. Plans are still there. They could pursue it anytime they wish. We haven't talked to him about it in a long time,
Okay.
but he certainly could pursue it if he wished to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing, actually talking about that topic, that's what this was for those that weren't on the plan commission at the time. Broomfield Road and Sweeney Road. Sweeney Road's that kind of snake-like road that goes through between Broomfield and for us in the township, between Broomfield and Bluegrass. And it's part of a larger development project that really never got going, called Tallgrass development. A little bit of things happened, but not there. And there were several lots. This is directly west of the Social Security Administration building. Several lots there, and the proposal was to build 2 buildings. I think the original was 2 buildings. The last version had them together as 1 building, and they would be several stories tall, first floor, commercial office, residential above. And it's what the ordinance calls a mixed-use building, and it's allowed in the business district. They wanted to have more residences than I think than our ordinance would allow. They wanted basically an extra floor, I think, of residences, and so they were proposing it as a planned unit development, and that was the direction they were headed. They never really got beyond the initial stage. I don't think we even held a public hearing on it, but they did come and meet with the Plan Commission at the time, and we have I think a couple of iterations of a concept plan. As I said, it was essentially COVID, material problems, and then credit problems. Banks just stopped lending money that push that project into abeyance. But it was a nice project. One of the things that is happening, though, in the development community related to these mixed-use buildings is that the developers want residences on the first floor, too. They may have commercial on part of the first floor, but they want to have residences down there as well, because the hardest thing to fill is the commercial side. The residences fill up very quickly, the commercial side is slow. This happened downtown, actually, with our building that the Green Tree Co-op is in. We're actually very fortunate the Green Tree Co-op wanted to move there because it was the commercial side that everybody was saying the residences are not going to sell, they're not going to rent, it's going to be empty for a long time. Well, the residences all disappeared like that. The commercial side took longer to fill, and that's definitely the case with these kinds of buildings. For this doctor, he was going to put his own practice in the first floor, and I think he had a tenant that was going to take part of the other part of it. So it wasn't an issue for him, but it is often an issue for folks that want to do this kind of thing. So it may also be something we need to look at in terms of our ordinance, and do we even go more on the residential side and allow them to be at least in part of the first floor, simply because, as I said, we have a overabundance of commercial property, and have a real gap on the residential side. It's an interesting challenge. At what point is it no longer commercial zone when it's all homes? But it is something I think we're going to have to look at from a practical standpoint.
I have a related point/question to that, as something that Commissioner Hayes had mentioned about there being the need for more housing, but two, the need for more opportunity for the people here to be able to afford the housing. And how do our plans, like our master plans and stuff, in our future meetings, how does that tie into this? Are we planning on doing something similar for researching how to attract businesses and stuff like that in the future?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you recall, we did the study of US 127 for industrial development, the corridor, and shared with you some the results of that and kind of a first take on a plan for economic development, industrial development. That will be coming back to you, updating that, revising that, and you'll have a more complete document to respond to. That's one of the items that I'm working on right now. And this is an item that the Middle Michigan Development Corporation has been helping us with as well to really make sure we're focused on the market right now and what's expected in the next number of years. So yes, that will be coming back. That is something that's part of my work right now. I work with, go and meet with local businesses, what I call business retention visits. Sometimes they call them other things. But it's all about simply finding out what the business communities need, what their concerns are. Often when I've gone, sometimes I just go without an appointment and surprise people occasionally. But that I learn things because they oh, you're from the township? Well, let me tell you about it. That's fine. That's great. I want that. It's very helpful for us as we work on what we're doing to have that communication. So there will be, in terms of plan, definitely that will be coming back to you. Well,
and that's the industrial. Do we have any plans on talking about? I know that we had mentioned young professionals, so professional services coming into the area as well.
That's a great question. So the plan, although we're talking industrial on that corridor, I think the plan is just called Plan for Economic Development.
Okay.
And so yes, it will be broader than just industrial.
Okay.
Although it's an important part of it. We also have in the current master plan we have a commercial plan essentially, and it has a specific focus for the Bluegrass Center area. That talks about some of the things that we want to see happen there over time. Some of which come to pass, some have not. We'll be coming back to you with a more focused look at that as well for commercial and office and kind of the professional services side of things from a land use perspective. Now, you're talking about really attracting businesses, but we also have to deal with it from the land use side. So you'll be seeing that as too. That's another one that is in the midst of being developed. Out of the framework that you provided and the data that we have, we're putting that document together, give you a first blush at it to take a look at and comment on.
Other feedback for Rodney on the housing plan? Do you feel like you've gotten what you were looking for?
I do. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, ready?
So we're in the home stretch here. Let's see. We're ready for extended public comment. So this is the second public comment of our meeting. If there's anyone who would like to address the planning commission on any item, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not, make yourself known. If you're in the room, come to the podium. If you're online, make yourself presence known. We'll give you an opportunity to speak. This is public comment on any item. It's restricted to 5 minutes. Just give us your name and address for the minutes. This public comment's open at 8:40. And we don't have anybody in the online, and we don't have an audience right now. So we'll assume that we'll just go ahead and close that back up for another month. So extended public comments closed at 8:41. Next is final board comment. Any comments from board members?
Nothing too much, but Rodney, will we get an update on your communications with the master plan for Mount Pleasant and the roads and stuff like that? I don't know.
If you don't mind, I can give it the short version.
Yeah.
So we did communicate your recommendations to the city. I just saw recently their minutes for their last meeting. You can find them on their website. I saw them through the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce shares their minutes with their members. And talked about sharing ours as well. If we could do that, but that's another conversation. But anyway, they shared the minutes, and they did talk about your direction to them. They did not talk at all about the roundabout. There was nothing in the minutes about the roundabout. But they did comment on some other things that they did make changes on. Specifically, they made a change to put back the connection, the Broadway Street extension that comes over to Lincoln. That's back in the plan. They made a comment on, or recognizing the comment about rerouting M20, but it wasn't clear in the minutes what if they did anything or not on that. I normally have a meeting once a month with the city planner. Unfortunately, the meeting this month had to be canceled due to a conflict, but we have one scheduled in another couple weeks, I think. Yeah. And so I was planning on learning more from that. But at least on some of the things that we shared with them, they did respond to them and make adjustments. Something else that I don't recall now, but anyway, they made some adjustments. Other things, at least acknowledged the comment. It was interesting that the roundabout item, there was nothing in the minutes about it.
It's going to put a kink in things trying to develop bluegrass if we don't have pedestrian right-of-way there.
Well, in terms of constructing that, that will involve the Michigan Department of Transportation, and we will be part of that conversation since the township has one corner of that intersection. And so I suspect that there will be ongoing discussion. I remember now the other item. The other item was the south interchange. They did acknowledge the direction we gave, and in fact, very much agreed with it, and they made adjustments along the lines that we talked about related to how to focus on that potential interchange improvements and improvements along that stretch of Mission Road.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I'm done.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, well, we've completed our August agenda, so we'll stand adjourned until September. So have a good evening, everybody.